Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. This interview is for information only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Salt-free spice blends are a big question in the store. Folks come in, they've been diagnosed with hypertension. Doctor says you've got to cut the salt. They come in and they're looking for salt-free blends. And I have the answer that the flavor part is easy. I can definitely direct them to things with low or no salt. But I was curious as to why, because I kept hearing this same diet repeated over and over, the DASH diet. And I was pretty familiar because part of the development team is in Baton Rouge. I wanted to dig in because I thought, is this just a low sodium diet? And I was completely surprised because it is just an overall healthy approach because it can tackle hypertension, weight loss, and even type 2 diabetes. So we talked to registered dietitian Renee Puyau. She's with Pennington Biomedical Research Center. She clears everything up, not only about her profession, but about the diet. Then we head to the test kitchen to tackle boneless, skinless chicken cutlets, which are a very convenient cut of chicken, nice and lean, perfect for the DASH diet, hard to get flavor into them. We tackle it with salt-free za'atar, which is tangy and bright and full of flavor, and then top it with a beautiful, simple parsley salad. My name is Ann Milneck. I own Red Stick Spice Company. I call myself the tireless champion of home cooks, and this is my podcast, Smidgen.
You're listening to Smidgen, the Red Stick Spice Company podcast located directly between a dash and a pinch, where it's all about the tips, tricks, and tools to make home cooking easy and doable. We did our research, and it's proven mealtime's where it's at. And now your host, Ann Milneck.
Today, I'm feeling pretty salty and talking with Renee Puyau with Pennington Biomedical Research Center. Renee has been a registered dietitian at Pennington for over 12 years. She studied human nutrition and completed her dietetic internship at the University of Alabama, and we are not going to talk football today. Renee serves as the director of the Metabolic Kitchen Core, overseeing menu planning, food production, and daily management of operations. Welcome, Renee.
Hi.
How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm great.
Yeah.
I'm great. So excited.
So we met probably 8-9 years ago. I was in culinary school, and I did my externship one semester at Pennington in the Metabolic Kitchen. And that was, first of all, big fun, but absolutely fascinating what you guys do here. And I really enjoyed my time there with you guys.
We loved having you in the kitchen. And might I say that we still cook some of the recipes that you developed for us? The tomato basil soup, the chicken parmesan, and I think there was one more that I'm forgetting. But those two specifically we still make regularly. And the cheese, the flat cheese, crispy cheese crouton thing.
Oh, yeah. Just grated cheese in a skillet. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a
we do
wonderful snack.
In the oven.
Love that. Mm-hmm. That's so funny. Okay. I do want to, before we start talking about the DASH diet,
yes.
I do want to ask a question that I would imagine you get asked a lot, and I've wondered about. Can you clear up what's the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist?
Really, anybody can call themselves a nutritionist. I mean, they don't have to necessarily have any sort of formal education. Anybody can be a nutritionist. A registered dietitian has to go through an accredited program, get a college degree, and actually complete a dietetic internship, pass a national registration exam, and in many states also have a license to practice. So it's kind of like being a registered nurse. You know, you have to go through an accredited program to make sure you know all of the important things about the field.
And I actually know some folks who have had difficulty landing a dietetics internship. They're apparently hard to come by, right?
Yes, it's becoming more and more competitive. I think just as the interest in the field continues to grow, and maybe not necessarily the amount of programs, the amount of programs are staying the same. So it is very competitive. I think students are finding themselves having to get a lot more diverse experiences. A lot of them are, trying to make sure they have work experience somewhere in the nutrition field or those sorts of things before applying to their internship. It is getting more competitive.
But probably a good thing that you guys are so highly knowledgeable, because we've got some pretty serious stuff going on in this country with health.
It's true.
And so that takes us straight to the DASH diet. So the DASH diet is interesting because it's a little Baton Rouge famous. Because Pennington, I thought Pennington developed it, and they did help develop it, but was actually would you call it a cohort in combination with 3 other very large institutions around the country. And it is one of the most comprehensive studies conducted in the late 90s, one of the most comprehensive studies on hypertension and diet-related approaches to hypertension. So tell us really quickly for lay people what the acronym stands for and what the DASH diet is.
Right. So the acronym DASH stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. And that is because, so the hypertension, high blood pressure, that's what the study originally was designed to look at. So there were multiple studies that were looking at both changing the diet overall and then focusing in on individual parts of the diet like sodium.
We have folks who come in the store. They've been diagnosed with hypertension. Their doctor has been very firm with them about changing their diet. And they come in and they say, I have hypertension. My doctor wants me to follow the DASH diet, so I need no sodium spice blends.
Right.
And for a long time, I thought that's what the DASH diet was. That was simply you lower your sodium and everything's better. And I think that speaks to the assumption of a lot of folks out there that I simply lower my sodium and everything's going to be fine. But the truth is the diet is about lowering sodium, but it brings a lot of really other good things to the table. Pun definitely intended there. So explain what the approach is.
Well, so it's so funny that it has been one of the top diets for so many years in a row because it's not anything like fancy or gimmicky, it's just really an overall healthful diet, increasing your amount of fruits and veggies, whole grains, low-fat dairy, restricting meat consumption, especially red meats, and reducing sodium is only just a part of it. So it's really just an overall healthy diet. And it's true. So I think for a lot of people, the sodium is easy to focus on because that's like one thing that you can easily control. Maybe it's easier to just like cut out extra added sodium than it is to like make this big change. And certainly, changing one good thing is better than changing no things, right? But it's true that it's about a lot more than just the sodium.
Right.
It's even about a lot more than just the added sodium, at the table, salting your foods or not salting your foods. It's even about thinking about the processed foods that you're purchasing, those hidden sodium in baked goods and cheeses and preserved foods and those sorts of things as well.
So the diet is, again, rich in whole grains, lots of fruits and vegetables. Low-fat dairy, more lean proteins, especially fish. And then it actually has 2 tiers, depending on where you are with approaching, whether it's pre-hypertension or you've been diagnosed. It has 2 approaches. One is right at 1,500 milligrams, and then one at 2,300. So 1,500 milligrams looks like 2/3 of a teaspoon of salt, table salt, and the other looks like 1 teaspoon of table salt. So I did a little research, and if a person had a fast food biscuit, egg biscuit with sausage and a hash brown, they would have met their sodium requirement for the day in that meal. So then a lot of people say, I don't eat those. I get sub sandwiches from a large outlet, and I get a sub sandwich, and that one actually hits that 1,500 in that one meal.
Right.
So when you look at the sodium content, and then we can go on and on. We can start looking at even breakfast cereals.
Oh, absolutely.
So when you start looking at the sodium content in processed food, what comes up with this diet over and over is that this is a whole food approach. If you start reading nutrition facts, you're going to probably get frustrated really quickly because you're not going to make it very far into your day. So this is about whole ingredients, which of course, speaks to me because I want everyone to cook at home from whole ingredients. But this is an approach of using whole ingredients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe limiting the amount of times per week that you eat from restaurants, whether it's a fast food restaurant or even a sit-down restaurant that you might think of as a higher quality, or it still could have a lot of sodium added into the foods.
So let's think about a listener who's bought in. Like they're all in.
Mm-hmm.
That counter is filled with all those whole grains and fruits and vegetables. And they are now tasked with making all these meals and making them taste delicious.
Yes.
So you and I have talked about this a lot, about what different ingredients can do for these foods. So tell listeners what you'd like to see happen now that they've bought in and they've got all those fresh fruits and vegetables and lean proteins.
Okay, well, I think it's so fun to think about how you can add each of these fruits and veggies to your meals, because it's always easier to make a change thinking about adding something versus taking it away. So I always like to think about, okay, well, breakfast. How can I add vegetables to breakfast? Breakfast is the hardest meal to add vegetables to, right?
Right.
We always associate it with fruits. So I like to think about what can I eat for breakfast that I can pack veggies into? Eggs, smoothies, those sorts of things. And you don't need a lot of extra fat or salt to make these things taste better. You don't necessarily need a lot of butter, if we're talking about saturated versus unsaturated fat.
Vegetable and fruit servings on Dash, how many?
4 to 6 for a 2,000 calorie diet, I believe. So that's at least a serving of veggies with every meal.
Okay.
If not more.
And that 4 to 6 is a combination of fruit and veggies?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
And then we need fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how many servings of fruit?
4 to 6.
Okay. What's a serving of blueberries
We'll say
look like?
a half a cup of blueberries.
Okay. So that smoothie could have probably half of, depending if you're combining some fruit, that could probably have half of your day of those fruits.
Yep. You could fit in 2 servings of fruits and 2 servings of veggies. Spinach. Okay. I love to put spinach in my smoothies because it's just such an easy way to put in the leafy greens, and then half of your servings for the day are done,
Yeah.
So you can put in, blueberries, bananas, there's 2 of your fruit servings, and some spinach. You could also try things like carrots, shredded carrots in a smoothie, or...
Oh, yum.
Yeah, I know. We've even put in the kitchen, we've had a lot of fun with smoothies in the kitchen. We've put purple cabbage in smoothies. We have put yellow squash into smoothies.
I've done that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, purple cabbage in a smoothie. I'm going to try that.
Yeah, put it with blueberries.
Okay. So I was thinking about that person who, if they're eating processed food or eating out several times a week, we've asked them to make a pretty significant change in their eating. And I understand that's challenging. And there are a couple of places that I think have a significant amount of sodium. And I wanted to see how you would approach this. And that's condiments and then salad dressing. So I've got you covered on salad dressings.
Right.
Where else are there some sodium bombs?
Store-bought breads, store-bought cereals, that sort of thing have a lot of sodium in them as well, can have a lot of sodium. And not necessarily all of them, but some do.
What's a guideline when they're turning that package around and looking at the nutrition facts on, let's say cereal is something that just helps with in terms of your busy schedule.
Yeah, and cereal.
What are they looking for?
Cereal can be a great option, but look at the first ingredient. You want to make sure it's whole grain. And then sodium is always listed on the food label. I hate to give a hard, look for something below this amount. But if you know you're trying to stay under, say, 2,000 milligrams of sodium, and you pick up your cereal and you see it has 500 milligrams of sodium per serving or something like that, you might think, well, shoot, that's a quarter of my daily allowance.
That's a quarter of your day.
So you might want to put that back and look for another good option. Because it's true that there are some really good cereals out there that can be good options.
Okay. One other processed food that we use a lot in cooking classes, I find to be a weeknight savior for me when I'm kind of brain dead and don't know what to make, is canned beans. When we talk about processed food in the world, it's a big adjective. There's some things that are minimally processed and some things that are really, really over processed. So is rinsing beans, are we going to get there
Well,
by rinsing them in terms of the sodium? Because I did notice that they're pretty high in sodium.
Yeah, sure. Rinsing them can help. And I mean, it also, I think, depends on what you're putting them in. Like if it's like a dish that's mainly beans versus if they're just kind of like supplementing what the food you're,
okay.
So if you're using 1 can of beans for 8 servings of food, then it's different than if you're only eating that entire can of beans kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. But you did make a face. You're not in love with...
No, I think I would never tell anybody to not eat canned beans because canned beans are better than no beans.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you through my dash day.
Okay.
And I'm curious how I did. I have a feeling, we've already talked about it a little bit. I think I know what I missed. For breakfast, 2 egg scramble with diced bell pepper and diced red onion.
Yum.
And I'm going to scramble those in just a little drizzle of my jalapeno olive oil. That flavor, the sweetness from the bell pepper, and that little bit of hit of heat from that jalapeno, I know I can eat those without salting them at all because I've done that. And then a whole grain tortilla and an apple.
Sounds great.
Okay. So for lunch, I make on the regular a cauliflower soup. So I love a blended soup. I love a soup that gets blended till it's velvety smooth.
Hence your tomato soup that you showed us how to make years ago in the Metabolic Kitchen.
Exactly. You want your soup chunky? That is just fine too. You're not doing it wrong, but that's just what I like. So I make a cauliflower soup and I approach it like a loaded potato soup, but this has no flour roux. And, the base is, I start with onions and leeks and garlic, and then the cauliflower goes in and it gets pureed. And then on the top, I hit it with maybe a little bit of Greek yogurt or some cheese. And then I have a salad on the side of that. I love nuts on a salad. So I'm going to bring walnuts and again, turn to my products and use an olive oil and a balsamic to make a quick vinaigrette. Okay. So then for dinner, I'm going to use chicken cutlets, which is crazy for me because I don't love boneless, skinless chicken breasts. They don't have a ton of flavor.
Sure.
But I've learned, and then a cutlet is even taking that boneless, skinless chicken breast further. But I've learned a technique to bring a ton of flavor to them. And I use a spice blend called za'atar. So za'atar has sumac in it. And sumac has a bright, citrusy, almost pine note to it. And I find sumac sort of tricks your palate into thinking not salt, but definitely that it's a complex flavor. So these are sautéed cutlets in za'atar, which is a very low salt blend. This blend also has sesame seeds in it. So sesame seeds are rich, super satisfying on the palate. And then I top that with a parsley salad with lemon juice and lemon zest and a little sprinkle of sumac.
Okay.
So I'm having that as my evening meal. What was my day missing?
Okay, so I think you missed some grains.
Some whole grains.
Some grains, for sure.
Yeah. And do you know why?
Why?
Because the whole world tells me I can't have carbs.
Oh, it's so sad. World, when will you stop? Carbs are so great.
So let's just back up and say that the DASH diet has multi-institution and multi-years of science behind it. And we don't have that same science behind a lot of the popular diets right now. Am I correct in saying that?
Okay. Right. Especially for the regular population, people who aren't sick and, need a therapeutic diet. We're talking about everyday living for you and me.
Tell this carb-fearing girl how many whole grains. I got that whole grain tortilla at breakfast. Where else are they? And I think I missed some fruit, Renee.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, "Ooh, is it the fruit?" Because I remember you said that apple, but I didn't remember you saying any other fruit. And then the grains. It was just the tortilla. Did you have any toast or anything at breakfast?
No.
Okay. And also, you know what I was thinking with your dinner? What would be really good is if you put like that cracked wheat in your parsley salad or like bulgur or something like that.
Sure.
Like a grain in there would be really good, or even like brown rice or something like that.
Okay. And then
some fruit for dessert.
What if I baked an apple with pumpkin pie spice?
Oh, that would be delicious.
And then topped it with, could I make a granola like muesli as like a not a
Yeah.
full-on apple crisp,
Mhm.
but definitely bring that to the party to bring it in there.
Absolutely. And homemade cereal. Hey, there you go. There is a way that you can completely get around the issue of added sodium in a store-bought cereal product. You can make your own granola at home. Then you can control the amount of salt that you're putting into it.
Obviously, those are you're talking about starting with old-fashioned oats, right? And then what else? What's going into that muesli or cereal that you're making?
I would put maybe some nuts, like some almonds or something like that, and maybe even some dried fruit, cinnamon, or you said pumpkin pie spice.
Okay.
That would be really delicious. And then, I know we're supposed to be limiting as part of the DASH diet. We should limit the amount of added sugars, but you could maybe just add a tinge of maple syrup or honey to sweeten it just a little bit.
Okay. I feel pretty good about my DASH day.
Yeah, I think you did great overall, because it's hard to add in all the fruits and veggies. And can I also say that I think it's a great policy to think about, like, if you didn't get all your fruits and veggies that you wanted in today, well, there's always tomorrow. So add more in tomorrow. That's fine. It doesn't have to be a black or white thing.
Before we close, I know listeners are out there saying, that's great, Ann. You just made those 3 meals. That is not available to me. I am, with kids or work, I'm just too busy. So if they are dining out, can you give any quick tips? Maybe a quick tip for fast food or I think sit-down restaurants are probably a whole lot easier to approach than, say, fast food or fast casual.
Right. I mean, I think if you just think about options that are, in your mind, overall healthier, like maybe if you can get the salad from the fast food restaurant, and yes, maybe the dressing is going to have more sodium than it would if you made a dressing yourself at home, but you're still not getting like the fried chicken sandwich. You're still probably not like blowing your entire sodium allowance, so to speak, for the entire day.
And then in sit-down restaurants, I find if you peruse the sides, to see if there's a side of vegetables, and like I'll do 2,
right,
along with protein, I find that those are a little easier to approach than fast food.
Right. Yeah. It is usually at sit-down restaurants a little easier to control, and you can do things like asking for your dressing on the side. So even though you're adding it, you can control the amount that you're adding, and things like grilling versus frying. Well, perhaps they're still going to salt the grilled food, but you won't have that added sodium in the breading and all the extra fat and calories and that sort of thing.
I do want you to talk about one more time the DASH diet. We are talking a lot about hypertension, but it also helps with some other things. If folks who may not be high blood pressure or high blood pressure, what else did it show that the diet did for folks?
You're talking about the weight loss?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, so following the DASH diet can help people lose weight. And I don't think that's surprising. I mean, do you?
No.
Right? Like, I mean, when you're adding in this many fruits and veggies, and when you're so focused on the fruits and veggies and whole grains and lean proteins, like, you're bound to be cutting some calories.
Sure. But when you look at it, it's not necessarily a low-calorie diet.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the one thing someone can do today?
Add a fresh fruit or vegetable to every meal.
That's doable.
And start there, you know? And it doesn't have to, if you want to make a change, nobody expects anybody to make a change overnight to like this big, because this is a giant change for a lot of people. So nobody expects anybody to make that giant of a change overnight. So start small. And then a lot of times when we feel successful with making a small change, that leads to bigger and bigger changes.
Okay. Where can they find information about Pennington and the DASH diet?
Right. So Pennington has a website. It's www.pbrc.edu. And on the Pennington website, there is a link to the DASH diet handbook. So you can read all about the details.
Awesome. So good to see you.
I know, you too. Thanks so much for having me. This was so fun to chat.
Thanks, Renee.
Yes.
I hope you learned as much as I did. My eyes are wide open now to what the DASH diet is. We are heading into the test kitchen to tackle these chicken cutlets, which everyone knows aren't my favorite cut. I'm not a huge fan of boneless, skinless chicken breasts, but if there's one thing that can help them, it's this spice blend za'atar. So we are using za'atar. It's a Middle Eastern spice blend. It's got some really interesting components to it, including sumac, which is bright and tangy and lemony, and then sesame seed, which are rich and umami. When those sesame seeds hit the heat, they toast. So you get richness from the sesame seeds, get that brightness from the sumac, and then there's also some onion and garlic in there, and they are just the thing to bring full flavor to these chicken cutlets. If the DASH diet is something that you are looking to wrap your brain around, we definitely have a full complement of salt-free spice blends that are more than just those herby salt-free blends that you might see on the market. We have everything from red bean seasoning to Cajun Creole seasonings and lots of beautiful French herb blends. Definitely nothing boring there. And so many of those salt-free blends use really interesting ingredients that don't leave you looking for the salt. They really satisfy the palate. And salt-free does not have to be boring. So if you're interested in za'atar or any of our salt-free blends, just go onto our website, redstickspice.com, put them in your cart. When you're ready to check out, be sure to use Smidgen 15 and save 15% on your entire purchase. You can also come and grab those salt-free blends at our Jefferson Highway store in Baton Rouge in Mid-City or at our downtown location on Main Street. Now, we are heading to the test kitchen to tackle those chicken cutlets. All right, welcome back. We are in the Red Stick Spice Company test kitchen. This is Smidgen, the cooking segment of Smidgen. And shop's open, customers are here, and we're in the test kitchen with Cameron.
Hello.
Who's been helping us with cooking classes for years now. So I'm excited that you're here. We just finished up an interview with Renee Puyau with Pennington Biomedical Research Center. Pennington is here in Baton Rouge, and they were part of the team that developed the DASH diet. So the DASH diet targets lower sodium eating and cooking, but is an overall healthy diet. But you work the store floor a lot. We get a lot of questions about salt. So we want to talk about that in a minute, but we want to get started with our cooking because we chose a dish that uses some very specific spices and flavor combinations that make this an extremely low sodium dish that you don't miss it, like super full flavor. We are making za'atar chicken cutlets with a parsley salad. Before we talk about all of that, let's get going. We need your fat in the pan because we're about to start sauteing the chicken. So let's get that going over high heat. And I'm going to talk about these chicken cutlets. We've got most of them pounded thin here, but I left one for us to show folks how we do this. The chicken cutlet is a really, really lean piece of meat. The things that give meat a lot of flavor, the skin and bones, are gone. But the good thing about it is it cooks quickly and it's very, very convenient for a lot of folks. So we do want to show folks. Now, we love a bone and skin on chicken thigh, right?
Indeed.
Okay. But we do want to show folks how to use this cut of chicken because it is so very convenient. The way we do this is it's already pretty thin on its own, but you need a little piece of plastic wrap. We're going to get that down and get that chicken cutlet in there. Get that wrapped, and then we've got a nice heavy meat mallet, and you don't have to go crazy. We just want to hit that a couple of times to get it nice and thin. So we just want to make sure when we pound it thin that we don't go crazy and break it, and you want to make sure as you're looking at the cutlet there's not one like thick side and then thin side, that it's all super even. Okay, so we're going to add this to our chicken that we've already pounded. We need to get our spice mixture put together. We need our flour, a 1/4 cup of za'atar, and Aleppo chili flakes. And we're going to use 3/4 of a teaspoon. We've been working with Aleppo chili flakes a lot here lately in the kitchen because they're a great example of a chili that does bring heat. It definitely does, but it's got some sweetness to it and just a good flavor. Like the chili has a good flavor. And they're a great way to demonstrate that chilies are a spice that have delicious flavor notes to them, but aren't just hot. So we're going to get that mixed up.
A lot more fancy than your average cayenne pepper.
Right. I think in this part of the country, we are kind of stuck on things just being hot and your mouth burning for a long time afterwards, and that we're not really getting the flavor of what the chili tastes like. Okay. Here are your tongs, and you're going to go one at a time and make sure that you get it into the flour mixture and press it. Exactly. And then you want to get that into the fat. And what oil did we use?
The oregano.
Which is a perfect complement to these Mediterranean, moving into Middle Eastern flavors with the za'atar. All right. So we're going to get those in there, and then these will cook and get nicely browned on one side. We'll turn them and move to our parsley salad. What has been your experience with folks coming in asking about salt and maybe folks who have been put on a low salt diet?
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a hard thing to avoid because somewhere out there on the interweb is an article and people ask, like, what is one thing in food that you can't live without? And I can guarantee you the number one answer is always salt. Because what is food without a little bit of salt added to it? Tastes like nothing.
And it's a necessary component in a lot of dishes. You know, we learned in our 60-minute Spice Master class, we learned in that class yesterday that salt is a necessary component because salt is a chemical element that changes the nature of food. It also tastes good. And that, you know, pepper's a spice, and those two need to get separated or get a divorce. But yeah, salt is a necessary component. It's actually necessary to sustain life. You know, we need it in order to sustain life. But in the standard American diet, there is, especially in processed food, there is probably too much salt. We're using salt the wrong way. Okay, so we've got 2 of the cutlets already flipped. How long were we there?
Literally maybe 1.5 minutes.
Yeah, not
quick.
Even 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So what's happening here as you flip them?
Hi, GBD, how are ya? GBD means golden brown and delicious for those that don't know. It's a term we use pretty much in every single cooking class.
A couple of things are happening with this in terms of this golden brown and delicious. Mm-hmm. There are 2 ingredients in za'atar that are helping us along right here with this gorgeous color. One, sesame seeds. So what are happening to the sesame seeds in here?
Getting toasted.
Yeah, they're getting toasted. So not only is that delicious, but it smells amazing, and it's giving us a great color. The other thing that's in here is sumac.
Nice.
So sumac is that tangy, almost has a pine note to it. Big in Middle Eastern cooking, can be used as a single ingredient. Sumac and lemon want to go out on a date together. Indeed. So yeah, sumac lemon chicken, we do that a lot here. Really, really good. Sumac whisked into a vinaigrette, fantastic. But again, that tang, that's super interesting, and not to fool your palate because there's no salt there, really to be super enjoyable, you know, a really good flavor. So sumac is a great one to have in your cabinet if salt is something you need to reduce. And then that meatiness, that umami from the sesame seeds are also super satisfying. So another great one to have in the cabinet if salt isn't a possibility. We pop the heat way down on these because these are just going to take a second to cook. And I'm going to get this chicken out of the way because you and I are going to work on the parsley salad. So you've heard me talk quite a bit about when salt needs to be reduced and what kinds of flavors we can bring to the party that are complex and satisfying that aren't NaCl, that aren't sodium. So we've talked about sumac, we've talked about the umami from the sesame seeds. Where else can you get umami?
Mushrooms, truffles, soy sauce, all the Asian stuff.
Lots of sodium in the soy sauce. But when you move to dried and ground mushrooms, like our smoked puccini shallot mustard blend, those are great complex flavors. It's super fascinating because they feel like there's salt in there, and there's none. So I'm always interested by that blend. But there's another thing in smoked porcini shallot mustard blend that is another flavor that is really appealing to our palate when it comes to trying to satisfy that saltiness. And it's mustard. So not prepared mustard, not yellow mustard in a bottle, but we're talking about dried mustard. So it's a complex flavor that gives us a lot of satisfaction on the palate. And that is a blend that brings all those things into play. We've got to make the parsley salad. And people are like, parsley salad? Like what? And was this not a showstopper at our chicken class? So Not My Mother's Chicken, fantastic class. It's one of our Milk Street Kitchen cooking classes. You know, I'd say I saw a lot of customers posting on Instagram and Facebook of all the things they made when they left and cooked them again. We need, obviously, parsley, but we need scallions. And so I need you to chop for me these 2 scallions.
Okay.
You know, we're going to go all the way, good 3/4 of the way. We want most all of it, but we're going to get that into this bowl along with the parsley. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time picking individual leaves off of this parsley. I'm actually going to take a lot of the stem with it. I'm going to grab a knife. I'm going to take most of the stems with this parsley. So all I want to do here, I could tear it, but I'm just going to run my knife through it a couple of times just to break it down so that it's a little easier of a bite when you go to take a bite of it. These go in our bowl, and then go ahead and drop our green onions in, or scallions. And then how's our chicken looking?
Looks done to me.
Give it the press test, or we feel like it's done?
Yep.
That's gorgeous.
Feels good.
Okay. So now we are going to, if you would, squeeze that lemon in here. So we're going to zest it first and then cut it and squeeze it in here. Zest a little more of this lemon just because this is way too much zest for the salad. But I love teaching folks to zest this way, which is essentially upside down. But first of all, you can see each time before you get to the pith of the lemon, which is bitter, which we don't want. You can also see what you're accumulating. So we need a 1/2 teaspoon. You can start eyeballing, what you're getting. So obviously we have too much.
Yep.
But go ahead and get about a 1/2 teaspoon in there. And then once your lemon is zested, then you cut it and juice it. So zesting a cut lemon, we've done it.
We've all been there.
Yeah. Where we're like, we're out of lemons. But yeah, definitely zest before you juice. And so now we'll juice. We need a tablespoon of juice, which is usually about the juice of half a lemon. Especially with these being large, I feel comfortable that's the case. But that goes in there. And that is this salad. Like, it's as simple as that. That's gorgeous. And we mix that all around, and then that tops our the warm chicken cutlets go on the plate or platter. We plattered these up at the class, and then the cold salad on top of the warm protein. You know I live for that. Live for that. That warm protein hitting the salad. Do we have smell-o-vision? This is amazing. So the last thing we need is just a touch of our oregano oil and a pinch of salt in here. Somewhere around a teaspoon. Yeah. Make it glistening, and a little bit of salt. Perfect. Okay. And then that is going to go on top of our cutlets. And again, love the cold salad on top of the warm cutlets. So we are going to move. How fast was that?
Super quick.
Yeah.
30-minute meal.
Yeah. If even that long. And so we're going to move to get that plattered up and get a taste of that here in just a second.
I'm excited.
I've got one little last task to do. I want to chop these walnuts. You know, what's cool about this dish is this is a DASH textbook dish. Lean protein, healthy fats from walnuts and olive oil, bright leafy greens, and very little added sodium. You know what else I realized? You remember when we taught this class and the dish was good, but we did admit that the chicken was a little oversalted because there is a step of salting the chicken cutlets before we dredge in the za'atar and flour. We forgot that today.
Yeah.
So I'm so curious. I bet we're not going to miss it because there's just so much flavor here. But not only is this a great DASH perfect dish, this also answers the number one question in the shop here at Red Stick Spice, which is,
how do I use spices?
So how do you think this dish answers that question? How do we do it?
Well, I think the first thing pretty much that you see when you walk into the store is like the 3 huge racks of spices. And I think that's so overwhelming for people.
Okay.
And they kind of come from a place of scarcity with it. They don't really know when to use it or how to use them.
Okay.
And I think whether that be a cooking class, kind of like the one we had yesterday, where we kind of go over everything you really need to know
Was
about
that the 60-second Spice Master?
The 60 seconds.
Or the 60 minutes?
60 minutes, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that whether it be we sign them up for a cooking class or we have an hour conversation with them about paprika until they can bring one home that they're going to use.
Right.
I think we just try to help them and figure out, and this chicken just kind of uses pretty much every type of spice that we have in the store in all the categories.
It's really super complex. Lots of broad flavors here, but all in one spice blend in za'atar. Okay, let's platter up that chicken.
Okay.
It's falling apart because it's so perfectly cooked and tender. That chicken gets plattered up and we drizzle it with our pomegranate balsamic. So again, another layer of flavor. We're not talking about a ton here, just a drizzle to give it a sweet note to contrast against all the other things going on the plate. And I want to point out that sumac is what it colored, bloomed in that fat and colored there. I'm going to let you drizzle pomegranate, and then we're going on top with the salad.
All right, salad first or balsamic first?
Balsamic. Gorgeous, gorgeous. And then we're going to get that salad piled up on top. And we're going to leave a little bit of the salad behind. You can certainly use it all, but that makes it picture perfect. And then a nice sprinkling of walnuts on top. And then folks come along and they grab a couple of chicken cutlets and some salad along with it. And that bite is just so delicious. Speaking of a bite, you want to take a bite?
Of course.
Let's do it.
What I came for.
All right. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I've got these for us. So we'll get our plates ready. Probably don't even need a knife, especially a steak knife, probably just a butter knife, but might even be fork tender. So a cutlet, a nice pile of that salad. I see that pomegranate vinegar drizzled on there. Yummy walnuts. This looks amazing. All right, let's dig in and see how we did. And again, definitely under 30 minutes for sure.
For sure.
If not faster.
Pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. Excellent. So lemon, super fresh parsley is what hits you first. I love the crunch from the walnuts. This is a fantastic dish. Really low in sodium, perfect for dash, but perfect simply because it's delicious.
I agree. I look forward to eating the rest.
Thanks, Cameron. This
Of
was
course.
so much fun.
Thank you for
All right,
having
we'll
me.
see you guys next time. That was super fun. Za'atar, definitely game changer. Something's getting boring, that's your answer. Thank you so much for listening. We loved having Renee Puyau with us on the show. You can learn everything about the DASH diet and Pennington Biomedical Research Center. We'll link to all of that in the notes, as well as all the products and recipes from today's show. You can find Smidgen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and now on Pandora. Subscribe and listen to the show. Everything about Red Stick Spice is at redstickspice.com. You can also head over to smidgenpodcast.com, find the show notes and everything about Smidgen. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for listening.